One of the questions that I get asked quite a bit on this channel is, Barry, should I upgrade my interface? And I think that's probably a very common question. I've certainly had it many times throughout my journey. But I think the first question I would have back to you is, why? Why? What is it you hope to achieve by upgrading your interface? And what are your expectations from it, I guess? And so as an example, and keep in mind, it's a difficult question to answer oftentimes because it depends on what interface you're currently using. If you're using an interface from 10 years ago, I would give you a different opinion than I would if you asked today, And so let's talk about some of the things that I think that really you can reasonably expect to achieve by upgrading an interface. I think certainly when you look at budget, then the middle ground, which is where I think most people probably are, and then you've got the high-end stuff, things that are over $1,200, $1,300 on and on and on and up. There's different parameters for each one of those. And so, let's say going from budget to, mid-level, again, which I think most people are probably using at home, your microphone preamps, you are going to see an improvement. There is going to be a difference in your microphone preamps. They are going to get better. Are better microphone preamps going to transform your music? No. And if you're not really used to it, you may not even be able to recognize the difference, to be honest with you. That comes with the experience. Those of us who have been doing it a while, many of you out there watching, can hear the difference and know the difference. But when you're new to it, probably not so much, And so outside of microphone preamps, really when you're going from the mid-level to, let's call it the more expensive stuff, the high-end stuff, that is where you're going to see probably a more significant difference in mic preamps. Because on each one of these levels of cost, there has to be compromises that come into play. And so typically when you get into more expensive interfaces, they have better microphone preamps. You talk about the Unison preamps that are in the Apollo series as an example. Lots of people really love those preamps. I'm on an RME Fireface UFX Plus. The microphone preamps in it are stellar. They're actually outstanding. Preamps in those type of interfaces oftentimes will rival any outboard preamps that you may get. And typically what most people are doing with outboard preamps is they're trying to add the color of that preamp, but you can get just the greatest sound internally. And there's also many plugins as well as, I said, again, the Unison technology with Universal Apollo series that can kind of will give you very close to that character. Is it exact? Debatable. But again, those are finely tuned ears to hear things like that. I don't think your average person's really going to notice that much difference. So when you go from microphone preamp from one to the next, yes, you're going to see a difference. Is it going to transform your music? No, it's not. It's not going to do that. Okay, so now let's talk about, features, I/O. Well, if you started with an entry-level interface and maybe you only have 2 I/O and you need more, then that's kind of an obvious question. If you need more I/O, you can do that. If you have an interface that has built-in ADAT I/O on it, and all you need are additional microphone preamps, consider adding an 8-channel ADAT external microphone preamp that you connect via ADAT. Oftentimes, and that will be universal regardless. So as you evolve in your interfaces, that will always remain relevant, okay? And you'll always be able to use it. So that's an option. So I think upgrading for the sake of I/O, yes, that's something that's important to you. The various types of I/O we look at, of course, analog I/O, and then we've got AES, we've got SPDIF, and we have ADAT, and then you get into the more network style protocol like MADI, AVB, and Dante. I use an RME Fireface UFX Plus here in my studio, and I also have a Ferrofish Pulse 16, adding 16 channels of I/O to that RME via MADI, and that frees up both the ADAT I/O on both the RME as well as the Pulse. So I have lots and lots and lots of options, but I have a lot of hardware behind me. Most people are not in that situation. So I actually need more I/O. So that's one of the reasons I would upgrade to that level of interface. So if I/O is a reason, then yes, by all means, you need to consider that. But if I/O is the thing, make sure that you're thinking about not necessarily what you need today, but what you're going to need in the future as best you can, right? Try to get your crystal ball out and see that. When it comes to support and stability, you tend to probably have some more problems. Well, let's talk about stability. Even budget interfaces today have become much more stable than they were in the past. Your mid-level to your high-end, those can be very, very stable depending on the manufacturer. It really is not probably as much the interface as it is the manufacturer's ability to keep updated on drivers as things change and evolve. So stability when it comes to that, you should be fine across the board from anywhere from intermediate up to more expensive interfaces. Now, when it comes to support, that's where you'll see a difference. Your basic entry level, be realistic. You're not likely to see budget-oriented interfaces be supported for a long period of time. As operating systems evolve, as computer systems evolve, things like that, they tend to get left behind because they can't put the resources into that. And they also revise those interfaces way more often than the others. In your mid-level, when it comes to your mid-level, that's where, you kind of, you're going to be okay when it comes to that for the most part. It's like anything else, compromises are made each step up the ladder you go. So when it comes to that type of thing, your mid-level should be fine. Now, where you tend to be really solid, and that's when you get into the more expensive interfaces, where they tend to be supported for a very, very, very long time. So for me, I personally, at this stage of my journey, expect to get 10 years out of my interface. That's how long I expect to be able to use it. Of course, that's one of the things RME is known for, So that's what I expect to be able to do. So kind of consider that. I think what most people are really asking when they're talking about whether they should upgrade their interface or not, is it going to sound better from a conversion standpoint, both your digital analog and your analog to digital? Is it going to really transform the sound of my recordings? And, again, on the budget oriented, you can get very, very, very good conversion on budget level interfaces today, way more than we've ever seen in the past, way better than we've ever seen in the past. When you get into your mid-level, you're good. You are good. You're not going to see a substantial increase or improvement in conversion going to more semi-pro type stuff. Now, I'm not talking about the super high-end stuff, the mastering grade. So for those of you who are thinking that, let's just set that aside. Most of my viewers out there are not in that set of circumstances. It's not going to transform things like it did 10 years ago. 10 years ago, it was like lifting a blanket off of your monitors. The clarity, the detail got so much better, so much more improved. The stereo width, all of that got improved a lot. But today, that's just not the case. Consider like what PreSonus has done with their Quantum series. The 4848 was a fantastic, highly compelling interface that competed well above its price range. I mean, well above it. For whatever reason, they discontinued it. Hopefully, they'll come up with a new one, maybe in NAMM next year. Fingers crossed. PreSonus is also another company that's really stepped up their game. They used to be kind of known as budget-oriented only. Maybe, it's kind of, I won't say junk, but definitely on the low end, lower quality side. Well, that's just not the case today. Also, I happen to be a huge fan of Studio One, by the way. If you're looking for a DAW, you should consider that one. But they're making great interfaces today, as are so many other manufacturers, So if you're thinking you're going to get a huge difference in conversion today, in my personal opinion, you're simply just not going to. That's not what's going to do it. You're better off spending that money on improving your monitors, depending on what you have, your studio monitors, because that interface you may have may be actually giving you results that you want, but maybe you just can't hear them via your monitors when you're mixing in your room. if you've ever noticed, hey, why does it sound so different in the car? Oh, anyway, I was going to say, why does it sound so different in the car? But that could be a myriad of things. But at the end of the day, that's not going to. It's just not going to matter that much. You can just upgrade your monitors, and you'll be able to hear things that you didn't hear before. And so that is one thing. The one thing that I won't say almost all, but far too many. Let me say it like that. Far too many home studios don't have any acoustic treatment. None. Now you see behind me back there, there's a lot of foam back there, and foam gets a negative, kind of gets negative reviews and things like that. Well, the foam back in here is all cosmetic. Behind me, I'm going to look at my monitor that I can see myself in, and well, maybe not that big, but there's a big window back there, a big window, and I didn't want all that light coming into this space when we bought this house, once I decided this was going to be the room that I was going to use. So I put that up there to kind of hide all that and give a little backdrop to the studio back there for the sake of these videos. And so, but I will tell you, foam treatment is better than no treatment. Now, bass traps can be very easily built yourself if you're even reasonably handy with a screwdriver, a skill saw, and a stapler. You can get it done by buying some 1x4s, a cover for it, and getting the right insulation on the inside, and hang those on the wall yourself. That's what I did here along the walls in here. And so that will give you what you need. There's plenty of videos out there showing you how to do that. I actually plan to make a video here coming up pretty soon about how to do that and how I would go about it if I were to do it again, because I've learned even more since the last time I built mine. So if you're thinking that upgrading your recording interface is really going to take your recordings to the next level, for most people out there, especially if you're in the intermediate range, maybe looking to go to that semi-pro, that's not what's going to do it for the most part. There's likely to be other features associated that will give you an improvement for sure, but it's not going to be like, oh, wow. It's just not likely to happen. Now, that's not the case with every interface and every manufacturer. There's a lot of options out there, so this is kind of a generalized advice from me to you. So do me a favor, leave some comments down below. Tell me what you think and what your experience has been lately. Now, I'm only talking lately. If you've got an interface from a long time ago, then yes, like I said before, it's probably a good time to upgrade that thing. But if you've bought one in the recent last few years or so, you should be fine. Certainly with conversion, no doubt about it, in my opinion. So if you like the things I talk about here, do me a favor, hit that like, that subscribe, and that notification bell so I got a new video out. Subscribe to the channel, help support me. I appreciate that a lot. Work hard for you guys, and I'd appreciate if you'd help me back. All right, but until next time, I hope you have a great time making music, okay? Bye-bye.